From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Tonight, Cronkite News is letting you choose your news.
We asked and you answered. And tonight we're bringing you the stories you said you cared most about, plus a chance to vote in our live interactive poll and share your voice to pick which topic you want to hear more about.
So here are the stories you picked from 3 separate Cronkite News Twitter polls. First, migrant medical costs. With the humanitarian crisis at the border, the medical bills for asylum-seeking migrants are adding up. So how are officials dealing with the multi-million-dollar price tag?
Second, are the foods your children eating really safe? We take a look at how local daycares rate among food inspectors.
And third, Arco Santi, an experimental community here in Arizona, is hoping to change the way big cities urbanize. We take you there and show you the efforts being made to conserve natural resources.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to this first of its kind special live edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Taylor Rocha.
And I'm Bobby Kraus. Thank you for joining us. Each of the 3 segments you're about to see in this 30-minute newscast will be shaped by you, the audience. A chance to choose your news as the show airs live.
So this is how it will work. First, you'll see our top stories from the Cronkite News Borderlands, Health, and Sustainability teams that you picked.
During each story, you'll be able to rate your interest level, telling us which one you'd like to know more about. Whichever story has the highest votes will dictate how the rest of this show goes.
Not only do we have expert interviews standing by on all 3 topics, but more chances for you to get your voice heard. So get your phones ready. To rate each story while it's airing, all you have to do is go to vote.cronkite.live and cast your vote on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, 5 being the highest interest you have in hearing more about it. We'll accept votes during the duration of each story, then you can vote again once a new story begins.
After each of the 3 stories airs, we'll tally the votes and tell you the results after the first commercial break. That's all straight ahead, but first, one more look at the top stories chosen by you.
We begin with the top-rated story from our Borderlands team. On Twitter, we asked you which border story would interest you the most: medical costs for migrants, added security along the border in Nogales, or the surge of migrants in El Paso.
And 50% of you voted for medical costs for migrants. State of emergencies, an increase of family units crossing, all of this adding to the humanitarian crisis at the border.
And this isn't only affecting government agencies or nonprofits that are dealing with the surge of migrants.
Cronkite News reporter Marcela Bayeto tells us how this is also impacting local hospitals and doctors.
According to Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol is sending 63 migrants per day to medical facilities for additional treatment, making it the highest number they've ever seen. We headed down to Tucson to see how Border Patrol and medical professionals are adjusting to the influx of migrants crossing.
After a 2,000-mile journey from their native El Salvador, this mother and daughter have found refuge at Casa Alitas in Tucson. After being dropped off by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Ana Lando, a local EMT and Casa Alitas medical volunteer, runs a strep throat test on the 11-year-old girl.
We're here and we're giving them medical care because they deserve it, and they have, this isn't something that we're testing them in any way. It's just to make sure that they have the medical care, to make sure that they are healthy and happy and can continue on their journeys.
However, not all of the migrants crossing are treated by humanitarian aid groups. Whether detained immigrants are seeking asylum or not, many of them need medical care, something Border Patrol initially provides to a degree.
If it's determined that they need to go to a hospital, we'll contact the local ambulance company if it dictates so, and that individual will be transported to the local hospital, still in Border Patrol custody.
Border Patrol says with the increase in migrants crossing, they now have to spend more time and money transporting migrants to medical facilities.
If it's in the field and the agent identifies an immediate medical need, that EMT will be deployed to that location, either by driving there, or if it needs to be expedited, sometimes we have air assets available that can land, pick up that agent wherever he is and bring him to that scene. to provide that medical care.
In the past 3 months, CBP has spent more than $4 million in salary expenses so their agents can transport and watch detainees while in the hospital. But that's only a fraction of the cost. CBP is projecting an almost $12 million price tag by September of this year. For nonprofits like Casa Alitas, most of their medicines, resources, and vaccines are donated.
We've been really fortunate in diverse ways about medications and resources of that nature. You know, the Public Health Department, PEMA, has given us about 500 flu vaccinations initially.
There is a sense of safety and security, which many of these people have not had in a long, long time, and to be able to in any way provide that is an amazing experience.
Toda la botella, okay?
CBP says they're currently on track to refer 31,000 people for medical treatment this year. For comparison, in fiscal year 2018, they only referred about 12,000. In the broadcast center, Marcela Bayeto, Cronkite News.
And don't forget, this is your last chance to let us know how much interest you have in hearing more about migrant medical costs by rating it on a scale of 1 to 5 stars.
To vote now, just go to vote.cronkite.live.
Next up, we take a look at our top-rated health story. On Twitter, we asked you, which Arizona health story would interest you? New opioid curriculum, inspections in daycare facilities, or mysterious tremors?
This one was a close call, but 38% of you said you wanted to know more about daycare inspections. Maricopa County conducts inspections across the valley, making sure the food you're served is safe to eat.
But as Nicole Hernandez reports, some of the places they inspect might surprise you.
Daycares and schools do more than just watch children. They also feed them. Maricopa County includes daycare and school kitchens in the restaurant inspection process, making sure children are eating food that's safely prepared. But not every school performs well on these inspections. I requested all of the restaurant inspection data back through 2013 from Maricopa County. From that, I found a total of just over 1,500 permits labeled daycare or school food service. The county has done over 21,000 inspections on those permits since 2013. But in those 6 years, 30 daycares or schools have only been inspected once. And even more startling, 51 of the permitted places have compiled over 20 violations in just 6 years. I spoke with a mom whose daughter goes to one of those daycares. But first, here's an idea of how a daycare should be running a kitchen.
It's the most important meal of the day and a favorite for these kids. Breakfast is on the way. Meet Mariela Alejos.
I like to make my own recipes, my own food.
Arizona Migrant Head Start students enjoy the food she prepares every day.
We're eating tortilla and beans and watermelon.
Sometimes you just go into the classroom and they hug you and say, thank you, the food was good. And that it's like, I feel good about my job.
This is so heavy.
A job that requires attention to detail.
You wanted to get your letter A.
Passing Maricopa County's kitchen inspections is a matter of health for the kids.
If everything is good in the kitchen, the kids are they're healthy.
And Alejos has succeeded, only receiving 1 violation since 2013. But not every daycare is as diligent. This is Bailey.
Come on. Bailey is a really smart, bright little girl.
The way she became a part of the Dillman family is a little different.
We have a call. We have a baby.
Within the day, they were bringing their adopted daughter home.
She's our little girl.
And a puzzle.
Now, 2 years later, Bailey goes to Little Scholars Academy on Choya Street.
They play with them. They take them outside. They have a great little play area for them to play in.
But they've had 30 health code violations in the past 6 years.
Temperature control, that's a big one because you don't want to serve somebody that's,
Bailey's mom looks at a list of violations.
I mean, if a temperature isn't correct, they can get sick from the food they eat.
Little Scholars serves food 3 times a day.
You put your faith in with your kids and their lives every day, and it's hard enough to drop them off and then not knowing what's going on while they're there.
That's why the county does inspections.
That's what we're there for.
To encourage places to keep their customers safe.
Raw seafood's over there.
Whether it's a chain restaurant or locally owned daycare.
Sometimes they ask me, when I go into the classroom, they say, teacher, where's For lunch today.
It's about feeding people in a safe way.
I reached out to Little Scholars Academy for comment several times, but they did not respond. All of Maricopa County's restaurant inspection information is searchable on their website. Daycares and schools have other inspections besides these that I outlined, so a parent shouldn't base any decisions solely on this information. Nicole Hernandez, Cronkite News.
And again, this is your last chance to rank your interest level in hearing more about this story. Just go to vote.cronkite.live right now to cast your vote on a scale of 1 to 5 stars.
Remember, the story with the highest rating will be the topic we bring you an in-depth look at a little later in the show.
Now, our top-rated story from our sustainability team, we asked you on Twitter, which sustainability story would you be most interested in learning more about? The options were an experimental community, oil on native lands, or ride-sharing emissions.
And 46% of you chose the experimental community. 50 years ago, an experimental community started to take root in central Arizona's desert.
Today, Arcosanti is considered an urban laboratory where people work to have the least impact on the land as possible.
Cronkite News reporter Bane Froney took a trip there to find how it's changed over the years.
Italian architect Paolo Soleri started Arcosanti in 1970 with the help of volunteers. He had a vision that thousands of people would live there in the desert. He wanted to build vertically rather than sprawling out. Today, 70 residents live here, and the community has become a way to show how to live sustainably. Elena Novali came out to Arcosanti while on a road trip. She was taking a sabbatical from her job as an early childhood educator in Denver 3 years ago. She never left.
Stayed here for a week and integrated in with the community and met a bunch of really great friends, and I just fell in love with the place.
There's a lot to keep Novali busy here. There are hiking trails, a swimming pool, community areas, theater, and a studio where artists create the famous Arcosanti bells.
I knew that my living situation in like the cities and the suburbs, it wasn't the right fit for me, but I didn't know of an alternative.
To live in Arcosanti, each community member, like Novali, completes a 6-week workshop where they learn how to live and work here. Novali now helps to continue the work started by Soleri. Soleri wanted to build a community that utilized nature instead of destroying it, so the architecture takes into account the desert ecosystem that surrounds it. David Tolas has carried on Soleri's philosophy. He's called Arcosanti home for nearly 35 years.
I've lived here since 1981.
Tolas works as an architect on site and is raising his 2 children here.
All the kids get to know people, and you have a supportive environment because you know all these people. We had people who living in the community who helped us raise the kids.
Tolas came to Arcosanti out of curiosity back in the 80s while studying at Michigan State University. He says as people become more concerned about climate change, there's a renewed interest in Arcosanti.
And now, slowly, climate change is becoming more and more of an issue. So Arcosanti is becoming, again, like it was in the beginning.
But not everyone believes that Arcosanti has accomplished what it was built to do.
I think it's failed.
Mark English, an architect in San Francisco who has visited Arcosanti, is not impressed with the community or Soleri's vision.
Seems to me it's more of an attempt for one man to stand above the others and basically sell himself as a prophet.
But to the Arcosanti community, it's more than just an experiment. It's a connection to the earth. The Arcosanti bells, for example, represent being one with the ecosystem by using natural materials and processes to make them. Then, the wind works its magic.
There's not a finite end or completion to anything. Everything's always constantly evolving and changing, and I think that Arcosanti has done a really amazing job to adapt.
I always say it's not the product that's that important, it's the process of what's going on.
To Novali, the community is the most important part of Soleri's vision.
I think it's more like the social sustainability that is the most valuable aspect there for me.
Arcosanti is a place where its people are considered a living experiment, where they try to find new ways to live in the most green way possible. The community is run by solar power, and the people try to use the least amount of voices they can. Live in downtown Phoenix, I'm Bane Froney, Cronkite News.
And remember, go to vote.cronkite.live right now to raise your interest level in hearing more about communities like Arcosanti.
Coming up after the break, it's the moment you've all been waiting for.
We'll reveal which story in our Choose Your News adventure got the highest rating based on your votes. We'll then provide you with an in-depth look with what an expert on that highest ranking topic. Plus, what people just like you think about it. So don't go away.
Welcome to another edition of Cronkite Sports Now. I'm Taylor Rocha. Let's talk sports.
For the latest on local sports and beyond, we've got you covered.
Let's do this thing.
We challenge reporters to go beyond, a game story. We want stories with depth.
It's just a crucial step from the college experience into the professional experience while you're still in school.
At Cronkite Sports Now, watch the journalists of tomorrow cover sports today.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Cronkite Noticias is the Spanish-speaking division of Cronkite News, covering topics such as economics, education, sustainability, immigration, and border relations. Cronkite Noticias strives to serve the Spanish-speaking community in Arizona. Under the guidance of prominent Spanish-speaking professionals, students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism develop content for our broadcast partner, Univision, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Explore Cronkite Noticias at cronkitenoticias.azpbs.org.
Welcome back to this special Choose Your News edition of Cronkite News. Before the break, we asked you to vote in our live interactive poll and let us know which story from our health, borderlands, and sustainability teams you'd be most interested in hearing more about.
And it looks like migrant medical costs got the most votes with a 3.9 rating. So let's dive deeper into the top story that you chose.
But as we do, we want you to join the conversation on social media and let us know what you think. Should you pay for migrant health care costs?
Just tweet us your thoughts and opinions by using the hashtag CNRealTalk. We'll be sharing some of your responses at the end of the show.
But first, we sat down with an expert for an in-depth conversation concerning healthcare costs for migrants.
Cronkite News reporter Marcela Bayeto sat down with an emergency physician, Nicholas Vasquez, to discuss the issue.
With the story that we just saw, essentially we saw an example of a migrant mother and daughter who are receiving medical care through a nonprofit, Casa Alitas, in Tucson, right? But as we know, that's not the only way that these migrants receive medical care. Some of them are apprehended by Border Patrol. Border Patrol then sends them to these hospitals, local ERs, clinics, things like that. So essentially the big question is, how are we paying for these migrants to receive these medical care?
Well, it depends. So first and foremost, it depends on the condition that the migrants have. The federal government has an actual fund called Emergency Medical Services for the care of migrants in the case of trauma or pregnancy or acute conditions that need immediate reversal. But beyond that, that program doesn't pay for care. Say if someone has kidney disease and needs dialysis, that program wouldn't pay for it. So there's a pool of money for the emergent care of people who are in dire need and who would die otherwise. But beyond that, just general wellness or general care or taking care of people who have other medical needs, it depends. Oftentimes it lands on the hospital or on the healthcare system or on the charity or community health center that takes them.
Now moving on to essentially from what you have seen, right, and being the ER, being in these hospitals and things like that, with this influx of migrants, what does it look like for the medical field? Are resources being stretched thin?
Most emergency physicians would say we face challenges every day with the population that we see anyway. Almost every day, the emergency department will be overwhelmed by the amount of people that come in during the time that they come. So long wait times, people boarding or waiting for inpatient beds, staying in the hospital, people with psychiatric problems staying in the ER waiting for some service later. Those are things that we face on a daily basis. So adding an additional sort of unfunded mandate, if you will, to the emergency services presents a challenge. Now, we're in this for the care of people. We got into medicine for the health and wellness of people. So we welcome the patients as they come, and we will take care of them regardless of their ability to pay.
As we know, when you go into a hospital, regardless of your immigration status, regardless of your ability to pay or not, you are able to get care, right? So what are some of those legislations, those laws that are connected to this issue?
Well, one of the things that the healthcare community feels very strongly about is that we are not police. We are not the immigration police nor any type of police. We want to take care of people as they show up and meet the needs that they have to try to save lives or improve their lives. A couple of years ago, we faced the possibility of having to ask immigration status, and largely we were against it because we are going to treat people one way or the other. The broader question you ask about the policies and sort of the patchwork is a good question, because really there is an absence of coordination right now. The federal government, the state government, the county government, healthcare entities are all trying to do the best they can, but as far as an overall coordinated response, there isn't one.
Thank you so much to Nicholas Vasquez for coming on into the studio, sharing some insight on this broader issue of medical issues and costs going into this migrant crisis that we're seeing over at the border. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
After the break, what are people like you saying about migrant medical costs?
We went out and got their thoughts on the issue, and some even shared their ideas for how to fix the problem.
Plus, there's only a couple of minutes left to tweet us your thoughts on the issue. Should more resources be allocated to help provide medical care to asylum-seeking migrants? Why or why not? Just use the hashtag CNRealTalk to join the conversation. We'll share some of your responses straight ahead.
Welcome back to this special Choose Your News edition of Cronkite News. Now that we've gotten an in-depth analysis from an expert about the problem of healthcare costs for migrants, we want to know what people in our community think about where the money should come from.
Our team of producers went out and talked to Arizonans to see what they thought. Take a listen.
I think the migrant, especially the refugee, they should have like a full medical coverage, because they've been through a lot of issues with their country, with their policy, war, and
can't supersede what we're able to get as United States citizens. That's all, but especially for the children. I mean, they got so many of these kids coming over that have no health care at all, but there again, we have so many kids here in the United States that don't have any. So I think the really balance and the equity would be to figure out something for everyone.
Would be between them and the doctors. I don't really think there needs to be a giant upper hand on who gets what sort of treatment, who pays more, things like that. Doesn't really matter. Just keep people happy and healthy.
Government should pay for all of this. They got the extra money to pay to cover stuff. I mean, they spend money all the time on frivolous things, so why not help?
Throughout the show, we've asked you to join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on social media.
Now let's take a look at what you had to say.
Cronkite News asked the question, should more resources be allocated to help provide medical care to asylum-seeking migrants?
Jay Meaton says, I believe we have to give what we can to ensure the good health of our sisters and brothers regardless of country of origin. Thank you for tuning in to this first of its kind special live edition of Cronkite News. We hope you enjoyed getting to choose the news that matters to you.
If the story you were most interested in at the top of the show didn't get selected, don't worry. Just go to our website, cronkitenews.azpbs.org, and choose your own digital adventure.
You can select any of these 3 stories to watch again, listen to the in-depth interview, or watch clips of voices in the community reacting to these topics. So, once again, you can choose your news whenever you'd like.
And finally tonight, we want to know, are there any other Arizona stories you want to know more about?
If so, just text NEWS to 602-536-9815, and our team will follow up with you. Again, just text NEWS to 602-536-9815. Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS.
Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, are state lawmakers getting any closer to a budget? We'll ask Republican leaders in our weekly legislative update. And we'll speak with Democratic Congressman Raul Grijalva about water issues, uranium mining, and the Mueller report.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour. Making the grade. Frustrations among U.S. teachers that have pushed some to go on strike. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
Well, that's it for this Tuesday edition of Cronkite News. Thank you so much for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.